Chosen from the cradle, signs that shows your purpose since childhood. Have you ever felt like your life has been different from the start? Like you've carried a weight you couldn't explain, or a fire inside you that never seemed to go out, even as a child? Listen closely. This isn't just a feeling, it's a sign. Maybe you've faced rejection where others were accepted. Maybe you've always asked deep questions no one around you seemed to understand. Or maybe you've walked through storms that would have broken someone else, but you're still standing. This isn't random, it's divine. You weren't just born, you were chosen. From the cradle, the struggles, the spiritual sensitivity, the strange favor, it all means something. Even before you knew your name, heaven recognized your purpose. Today, on the journey of wisdom, we're uncovering 7 powerful signs that God set you apart from the very beginning. These signs are more than just spiritual. They're deeply connected to how you experience life in today's world. So stay with me. What you're about to hear may unlock answers you've been seeking your whole life. Let's begin. Sign number 1. Unusual warfare in childhood. From the very moment your life began, before your mother ever held you, before you could even cry your first tear, the enemy already had his eyes on you. You weren't just a baby, you were a target. And not because of what you did, but because of who you were destined to become. That unexplainable hardship you faced early in life, that wasn't bad luck. It was spiritual warfare aimed at your divine assignment. The enemy recognized the fingerprint of God on you long before you even knew yourself. Just as Jeremiah was told by the Lord, "Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart. I appointed you as a prophet to the nations." From Jeremiah chapter 1 verse 5, your story has always been written with divine ink. Men like Moses were marked even before their mission began. Pharaoh's decree to kill all Hebrew boys was not a random act of cruelty, it was spiritual interception. Similarly, Jesus had not spoken a single word, yet King Herod was already plotting to destroy him. That's because when heaven sends a man with purpose, hell takes notice. So when you think back to your childhood, the moments of rejection, the physical sicknesses that came out of nowhere, the emotional trauma you barely understood, it's time to stop labeling them as unfortunate and start recognizing them as prophetic. You've been through fire because you carry something pure. You were not under attack because you were weak, but because you were seen as a threat. Your presence on this earth has always meant something powerful, and the enemy's mission was simple: break you before you bloomed. But here you are, still standing, still breathing, still rising. Every scar on your soul is not a sign of failure, but of survival. Every breakdown was actually a breakthrough in disguise. The chaos in your childhood was not meant to end you, it was allowed to shape you. Think about it. How many times did you survive something you didn't even have the strength to pray yourself out of? That's not luck. That's grace. That's God's hand holding you together when everything else was falling apart. As Psalm 20 verse 1 reminds us, "May the Lord answer you when you are in distress. May the name of the God of Jacob protect you. You were covered even when you didn't know how to ask for it." And now, as a grown man, it's time to see yourself not as a victim of your past, but as a product of divine preparation. Your pain was not wasted, it was training. God used every lonely night, every false accusation, every moment of silence to sharpen your senses and strengthen your soul. So, if you've ever wondered why your life seemed harder than others, why you had to grow up faster, hurt deeper, or fight more battles. Know this: you were chosen from the cradle. And being chosen doesn't mean comfort. It means calling. It means being trusted with more. It means God saw something in you worth protecting. As the old saying goes, the devil doesn't fight what he doesn't fear. So instead of resenting the warfare, start recognizing it as confirmation. You are not here by accident. You were born with a reason, and every storm you survived was proof that your destiny could not be destroyed. Let go of the shame, the guilt, and the lies that tell you you're broken beyond use. You are not broken. You are built for purpose, built for impact, built to rise. In today's world, where men are pressured to numb their pain or pretend they're fine, you have the right to look back at your past with clarity and say, "Now I understand." You are not here to merely exist. You are here to shift atmospheres, to lead your family, to influence your workplace, to stand for truth, and to live out your calling. And all of that started not when you discovered your purpose, but when you were born with it. You've been in a battle because your life matters, and now it's time to walk in that truth, fully aware that you weren't just fighting for survival, you were being prepared for significance. Sign number 2, you never fit in, the misfit syndrome. Have you ever looked around and felt like no matter how hard you try, you just don't belong? Like there's something inside of you that keeps pulling you in a different direction, something that doesn't allow you to just go with the flow. Maybe you laughed when others laughed, followed the crowd, tried to blend in, and still felt that deep down disconnect. If that sounds like you, I want you to know it's not because there's something wrong with you, it's because there's something different about you. You were never designed to fit in. You were chosen to stand out. You were marked by heaven even before you knew your own name. That sense of misplacement you've carried since childhood, that's not rejection, it's revelation. It's confirmation that you were set apart from the beginning. In John 15, verse 19, Jesus says, "If you were of the world would love its own. But because you are not of the world, but I chose you out of the world, therefore the world hates you." It's not easy to hear, but it's freeing, because it explains why fitting in has always felt like forcing a puzzle piece into the wrong spot. Think for a moment. Why do certain people from the Bible stand out so much? Joseph wasn't just disliked by his brothers because he wore a colorful coat. It was because he carried a dream they couldn't understand. He had a vision that was too big for their box, and that made him a threat. Then there's David. He wasn't trained as a warrior like his older brothers. He was out in the fields, caring for sheep, forgotten by most, but not by God. It was David, the overlooked one, who was anointed king when no one else saw it coming. Or consider John the Baptist, living in the wilderness, eating locusts and wild honey. Nothing about him said normal, but everything about him said purpose. His odd ways weren't a flaw, they were evidence that his life had divine direction. So let me ask you, could it be that the very things that make you feel different are the things that point to your destiny? Let's be honest. There are times when that difference hurts. It feels like loneliness. It shows up as exclusion. You might have asked yourself, why do they avoid me? Why don't they understand me? Why does it feel like I'm walking a road no one else wants to travel? But what if that lonely road is actually a path that only you were created to walk? What if your isolation is God's way of preserving your uniqueness and protecting your purpose? Being chosen means being carved out for something bigger. And God doesn't create leaders who are addicted to blending in. The crown on your life won't sit right if you keep trying to wear what everyone else is wearing. The crowd might be loud, but it doesn't carry your calling. Sometimes the enemy will try to turn your uniqueness into shame. He'll whisper lies that you're weird, that you're forgotten, that you'll never belong. But here's the truth you need to plant deep in your spirit today. You are not forgotten. You are favored. You are not overlooked. You are hand-picked. You are not insignificant. You are a masterpiece, created intentionally by a God who doesn't make mistakes. So, here's what I want you to hold on to. Your misfit moments were never a curse. They were clues. Clues that you've been marked for a higher purpose since day one. Instead of asking, "Why don't I fit in?" start asking, "What have I been created to stand out for?" Because the world doesn't need more copies. It needs the original version of you that God designed. Don't shrink back. Don't change your colors to match the room. Walk boldly in who you are, because that's where the power is. Key takeaway: being different isn't a mistake. It's a message from heaven that you were chosen for something greater. Embrace your uniqueness. Your difference is your distinction. And the very things that made you feel like a misfit, they're the very signs that you were chosen from the cradle. Sign number 3. People don't like you for no reason. Let me ask you something straight from the heart. Have you ever felt disliked for no reason at all? Like you walk into a room and suddenly the atmosphere shifts. People glance at you sideways. Conversations quiet down, and you just feel the weight of unspoken tension pressing on your spirit, and you're left wondering, what did I do wrong? But deep inside, you know you didn't do anything. You were just being you. If this hits home, then listen closely, because this isn't about rejection. This is about recognition. What you're carrying is making others uncomfortable, not because it's wrong, but because it's real. That's one of the clearest signs that you've been chosen from the very beginning. Yes, even from the cradle. You see, there's something sacred about being marked for purpose, even before you fully understand it. And sometimes, the spiritual favor that rests on your life speaks louder than your words ever could. Jesus said in the book of John 15 verse 18, "If the world hates you, keep in mind that it hated me first." That wasn't just a statement, it was a revelation. Being set apart means you'll often feel set aside. But beloved, being misunderstood is not a curse. It's often confirmation. Let's look at Joseph for a moment. This young man had dreams straight from heaven, and instead of celebration, he faced betrayal by his own brothers. Not because he wronged them, but because his dream made them face the smallness of their own vision. They saw the greatness on him, and it unsettled something in them. Sound familiar? How many times has your light stirred something in others that you didn't intend to awaken? And let's not forget David. He was anointed to be king, yet had to run for his life from Saul, a man tormented not by David's actions, but by David. And then there's Jesus, the embodiment of love and truth. Yet the scripture says in Isaiah 53 verse 3, "He was despised and rejected by men, a man of sorrows and familiar with suffering." They crucified him not because of any wrongdoing, but because his very presence shook the foundations of darkness. So maybe, just maybe, what you thought was personal isn't. Maybe the resistance you're facing is spiritual. Maybe the dislike isn't a reflection of your flaws, but of your favor. Could it be that your very existence is a mirror that makes others confront what they're avoiding in themselves? That your calling irritates what they haven't yet dealt with? These are deep questions worth pondering. But here's the beauty in all of this. Rejection doesn't ruin destiny. It often reveals it. Joseph still ruled, David still reigned, Jesus still rose, and you, yes, you, will still rise too. Because what God has spoken over your life cannot be cancelled by criticism, jealousy, or human disapproval. His word over your life is final. Your purpose was planted in you long before any person ever had an opinion about you. So what do you do when people turn against you for no reason? You don't shrink. You don't retaliate. You refocus. You hold your head high, stay grounded in humility, and keep walking. Because sometimes rejection isn't rejection, it's divine redirection. God allows it not to hurt you, but to position you. Every no, every closed door, every whisper behind your back, it's all part of the process that leads to the promise. Can I encourage you today? Keep showing up as yourself. Keep carrying the light, because the very thing that makes some people uncomfortable is the same thing that heaven applauds. And remember, you were chosen before the world ever had a chance to label you. So don't let their noise drown out your calling. You were marked from the cradle, and nothing can change that. Now let me leave you with this question. What if the resistance you're facing is not a sign to stop, but the proof that you're right where you need to be? If you've made it this far, it means you're beginning to recognize that your purpose has been with you all along, since the very start. Comment below with "chosen from birth" to affirm that you are ready to walk boldly in your calling. Stay with us until the end. There's still so much more to uncover about the divine path written just for you. Sign number 4, marked by favor. There are moments in a man's life where, if he pauses and reflects honestly, he realizes some of the blessings he's received just don't make sense by human standards. It could be that job you got, even though you didn't meet all the requirements, or that person who went out of their way to help you without expecting anything in return. These aren't coincidences. These are signs of divine orchestration, clear fingerprints of a God who has marked you for a purpose since the very beginning. When things happen in your life that bypass logic, bypass protocol, and bypass the expected process, that is not luck or coincidence, that is favor, God's favor. And favor is a signature only heaven can write. Like Joseph, whose story is told in Genesis chapter 39 verse 2 through 4, the Lord was with Joseph so that he prospered. Joseph found favor. Despite being betrayed, falsely accused, and locked up, Joseph was elevated time and time again. His favor didn't depend on his situation, it depended on who was with him. That is the power of being chosen. No pit, no prison, and no person can stand in the way of what God has declared over your life. And perhaps this has been your story too. You've walked into opportunities that others had to strive for. You've gained access to rooms where you didn't even knock on the door. People favored you, promoted you, defended you, even when you didn't ask. This isn't something to feel ashamed about, and it surely isn't something to waste. The question isn't why me. The real question is, what now? Because favor is not a trophy, it's a tool. Joseph's favor was for a famine that would one day affect nations. Esther's favor wasn't about crowns or comfort. It was about courage and calling. And David didn't sit on a throne for vanity, but to lead with vision and establish God's authority among his people. In each case, favor was not just a gift, it was an assignment. So for every man listening, especially those aged between 30 and 65, wrestling with why you've received certain breaks while others have struggled, understand this: your favor is evidence of your purpose. It is not to be squandered. It is not to be apologized for. It is to be stewarded. And in this modern world of competition, where hustle is glorified and achievement is often tied to status, your divine favor sets you apart, not to boast, but to build. Build families with integrity. Build businesses with honesty. Build communities with compassion. Your favor is an invitation to lead by example in a world desperate for direction. So, walk boldly, not arrogantly, but boldly, knowing that when God opens a door, no man, no system, no opposition can shut it. As Martin Luther King Jr. once said, "Faith is taking the first step, even when you don't see the whole staircase." So take that step, not because you're confident in yourself, but because you are confident in the one who called you. You're not just living, you're walking on purpose. You're not just lucky, you are chosen. And when you are chosen from the cradle, heaven keeps receipts of every door, every connection, and every favor, because every one of them is part of the story that leads you to your divine assignment. Sign number 5. You've had close calls with death or danger. Now take a moment and think back to that time when you honestly thought, "I shouldn't have made it through that." Maybe it was a car accident, a serious illness, a dark season of depression, or even a moment when you thought your life was over, but somehow you made it out. You're still standing, you're still breathing, and, friend, that is not luck. That's divine preservation. Some people might brush it off as coincidence, but deep down, you know better. There was something in that moment that kept you here, something bigger than you. That something is God. He stepped in, not because you're lucky, but because you're chosen. You were marked for purpose long before the pain, and the reason you're still alive today is because your assignment on this earth is not finished. God didn't just let you survive. He protected you with intentionality and love. Have you ever wondered why you're still here while others didn't make it? Why the sickness didn't win? Why the depression didn't bury you? Why the enemy couldn't succeed? It's because you carry something on the inside that's too important to be taken out early. Psalm 91, verse 11 says, "For he will command his angels concerning you to guard you in all your ways." That means you've had angelic protection even when you didn't see it. You didn't just get through that danger, you were carried through it. Some of you don't even realize the full extent of what you've survived. And yet, you're here, not just to exist, but to live out a purpose that can shake nations, heal hearts, and change destinies. Let's look at the stories of those who were preserved with purpose. Moses was a baby when a death decree went out to kill all Hebrew boys, but God used his mother's hands to place him in a basket, and that basket floated straight into his destiny. Daniel was thrown into a den full of lions, but not even their hunger could touch him. Paul endured shipwrecks, stoning, and even a deadly viper bite, but not even nature could cancel his mission. And even Jesus, yes, even Jesus, faced multiple assassination attempts before the cross, but none succeeded because his time had not yet come. Do you see the pattern? When you're chosen, you're covered. When you have a divine purpose, no plot of the enemy can destroy you before your time. So I want to speak this to your heart. Your survival is proof of your significance. You were not just lucky to escape that situation. You were preserved by the hand of God, because there is something inside of you that heaven needs and hell fears. You didn't just get through the storm, you were kept in it for a reason. You are not here by accident. You are not a mistake. You are not a product of chance. You are a divine assignment walking in flesh. And every time the enemy tried to take you out, God whispered, "Not this one. I have plans for this one." That's why you're still breathing. That's why you're still standing. That's why, after all you've been through, your story didn't end there. Because your purpose is greater than your pain. Isaiah 54 verse 17 reminds us, "No weapon formed against you shall prosper." And that includes every weapon of sickness, danger, trauma, and mental warfare. Yes, the weapon may form, but it won't win. So now, here's a question for you to reflect on. What have you survived that should have taken you out, but didn't? And what does that say about the calling on your life? Think about it. Your life is living proof that God's hand has been on you since the beginning. You are chosen from the cradle, not by chance, but by divine design. Here's the lesson. If you're still alive, then your assignment is still active. You didn't just survive, you were saved with purpose. So walk boldly in that truth. Let your survival be your testimony, and let your testimony become someone else's breakthrough. The world needs what you carry. Keep going. You're here for a reason. Sign number 6. You have an innate desire to help others. Let me talk to you directly, because if you're hearing this right now, it's not by accident. There's a reason why, even as a child, you felt the weight of other people's pain. There's a reason why your heart always reached out, even when you were too young to understand why. Maybe you were that kid who couldn't walk past a hurt animal without trying to help, or the one who stayed up late thinking about the suffering of others. That's not just compassion, it's a sign, a divine mark, a whisper from heaven that says, you were chosen from the cradle. See, what you have is not something that school taught you or that your environment conditioned into you. It's not just because your parents raised you right. It's something deeper, a fire planted in your spirit before you even knew how to spell your own name. That unstoppable urge to help, to carry, to heal, to fix what's broken in others. It's not weakness, it's divine wiring. It's the fingerprint of your purpose. You've probably wondered, why do I feel everything so deeply? Why do I cry over things that aren't even mine to carry? Why do I get exhausted by the weight of others' burdens, yet still go back to help again and again? That's because you're not just sensitive, you're spiritually connected. You're built to stand in the gap, to be the bridge, the voice of comfort, the shoulder that doesn't collapse under pressure. Philippians 2 verse 4 reminds us, do not look to your own interests, but each of you to the interests of the others. And let me tell you, what you feel is not random emotion, it is purpose-stirring. And yes, it's heavy sometimes. Being chosen can feel like a burden. But have you ever considered that this burden is sacred? Think of Moses. Before he ever parted the sea, before miracles poured from his hands, before the burning bush moment, we're told that he saw an Egyptian beating a Hebrew, and something in him snapped. He couldn't stand still, he couldn't walk away. That's in Exodus chapter 2 verses 11 and 12. His calling showed up before he even understood it. And what about Nehemiah? He had everything, comfort, position, peace, but when he heard that Jerusalem was in ruins, he wept. He fasted. His burden became his blueprint. Or Esther. who could have lived quietly in the palace, untouched by her people's pain, but she stepped into destiny, saying, "Perhaps I was made for such a time as this." Their stories are not ancient fairy tales. They are blueprints for what purpose looks like: raw, emotional, sacrificial. Even Jesus, the most powerful divine figure to ever walk this earth, was moved with compassion when he looked at the crowds. That's in Matthew chapter 9, verse 36. His love was not quiet or polite. It compelled him into action. And if Jesus himself was led by love, how much more should we recognize that same pull inside of us as holy? But let me pause here and ask you, how are you caring for your heart while carrying everyone else's? Because here's the truth. Being chosen does not mean being consumed. Even Jesus had to retreat and pray. Luke chapter 5, verse 16 tells us he often withdrew to lonely places. Why? Because even the Savior of the world knew that pouring out without being filled up leads to emptiness. So if you've been feeling burnt out, worn thin, like you've given all your light away, hear this: God did not choose you to be depleted. He chose you to be impactful. And wisdom is part of your anointing. It's not just about helping, it's about helping with boundaries, with balance, and with grace. So what does that look like in your life? What would change if you began to see your compassion not as a flaw, but as a gift? What if you embraced your heart as heaven's tool for healing others? And what if, starting today, you began to honor the you who was chosen from the cradle, not just by working harder, but by living wiser? The desire to help is holy, and so are you. If this message spoke to something deep inside you, don't overthink it. Just drop a comment below and say, "That's me. I feel it. Let's stand together in purpose." Sign number 7, you were rejected by those closest to you. There's a unique kind of pain that comes from being pushed away by your own, by the people you trusted, the ones you thought would always be there, the ones whose approval meant everything. And yet if you've walked through life feeling like the black sheep in your family, overlooked at the table, or constantly misunderstood by those you love the most, I want you to hear this truth today. That very rejection may be one of the strongest signs that you were chosen from the cradle. Because rejection, as painful and personal as it is, can often be the soil where divine purpose takes root. Look at the story of Joseph, not just as a biblical figure, but as a real young man with real emotions. Genesis tells us that his own brothers hated him because their father favored him. And in Genesis chapter 37 verse 4, it says they couldn't even speak a kind word to him. That bitterness turned into a plot, that plot into betrayal, and that betrayal into years of hardship. But through it all, God was not absent. Joseph's journey to the palace didn't begin in glory. It began in a pit. What seemed like abandonment was actually acceleration, rejection as redirection. Even Jesus, the most blameless of all, felt this sting. John chapter 1 verse 11 tells us, "He came to his own, and his own did not receive him." Imagine that. The Creator, walking among his creation, ignored and ridiculed by the very ones he came to redeem. He was not recognized, not respected, not believed. They mocked him, saying, "Isn't this the carpenter's son?" as if his identity was too common to carry greatness. But here's the power in that moment. Their rejection did not define him, it revealed him. Because the stone the builders rejected became the cornerstone, the foundation of something eternal. In the same way, your calling is not cancelled by the ones who didn't clap for you. Their silence doesn't weaken your voice. Their absence doesn't limit your impact. Brothers, Some of you have spent decades trying to win the approval of people who were never anointed to affirm you. You've questioned yourself, doubted your worth, and tried to water yourself down to fit into environments you've already outgrown. But today, God is breaking that cycle. You do not need their permission to be who God called you to be. If Joseph had been embraced by his brothers, he may have never left the house and never saved a nation. If Jesus had been accepted by the religious elite, the cross might have never happened, and neither would our salvation. Let that sink in. Sometimes, the very people who reject you are unknowingly pushing you toward the fulfillment of your destiny. That pain wasn't pointless. It was a platform. And so I urge you, don't grow bitter, grow stronger. Don't chase validation from those who can't see your value. The absence of their support is not evidence of your inadequacy, it's often confirmation of your calling. Your setbacks, your heartbreaks, your lonely seasons are not signs of failure, they are evidence of divine movement. God is orchestrating your elevation, and sometimes He removes certain voices so you can finally hear His. One day, those who turn their backs on you will witness the glory of what God built in your life, and they'll realize it was never about them. So walk tall, not in pride, but in purpose, because if rejection sent Joseph to Egypt and Jesus to the cross, then maybe, just maybe, it's sending you exactly where you need to be. And there you have it, 7 powerful signs that you've been chosen from the cradle. If any part of this message resonated with you, if your spirit whispered, "This is me," then know this, your life has never been random. Every struggle, every rejection, every moment of favor, it all pointed to one thing. You were born with a purpose. Now it's your time to rise with clarity, confidence, and courage. Walk in the truth that you are not just surviving, you're being shaped for significance. If this video spoke to your heart, do me a favor. Like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and make sure you subscribe to the Journey of Wisdom. And don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you never miss what's coming next. Because this isn't just a channel, this is a movement, a place where truth meets transformation. Until next time, walk boldly, live wisely, and never forget, you were chosen from the cradle.